and answering difficult questions. This can always be tricky in an interview because you do have to answer quickly. But number one is to stay calm and collected. If you don't know the answer to a question, that's okay. It's better just to be honest, and admit that and not try to make up an answer. It can be very obvious when someone is making up an answer, so it will look better if you are just honest that you don't know and try to highlight that you will try to find out if that's something that you can find an answer to in the near future. Be honest. So if you're asked about a weakness, which you probably will be, that's a very common question, acknowledge it and describe how you have either improved it or what are you actively doing to improve that. Um, like for an example, your weakness, maybe you are very detail oriented and sometimes you can get um, carried away in the details of a project and kind of lose the big picture. And then you could say like, um, but when that happens, I try to communicate with my team and focus on what are the goals that we need to accomplish together rather than specific things that I notice, and just kind of show how you grow from that and try to get out of those patterns. And then, of course, using the STAR method, like we talked about, can help with difficult questions too, especially because STAR method requires you to identify what actions you took to overcome an obstacle. Um, so yeah, I just put some examples of challenging questions. What are your weaknesses? Tell me about a time that you overcame an obstacle, just as an example. So showcasing your strengths, this is definitely the most important part and kind of the whole point of an interview. Highlighting achievements, like we talked about, emphasizing academic or personal accomplishments that demonstrate your skills and strength. This could be leadership, teamwork, problem solving. It doesn't have to be all, just whatever ones you feel like are the most relevant. Being specific. So you don't just want to say, like, I'm a good team player and end it at that. You want to give examples. Again, you want to show, not tell. Anyone can say that they're hardworking or a good team player, but not everyone has your specific experience or has accomplished goals that you have. Using a resume or a college application as a reference of your experiences to guide your answers is very helpful. Um, Especially because if you do have a resume, um, and you already have the descriptions of each role, that can really help you be concise in describing something because you don't want to focus on, describing the organization. You want to focus on what did you contribute. Um, and then balancing confidence and humility. You want to present your strengths confidently, but you don't want to sound boastful. So acknowledge your team and other people that made these achievements or these experiences possible. Um, Collaboration is a really positive, and I have experience where you can definitely do that in an interview. All right, so asking questions. Why do you want to ask questions in an interview? Asking questions will really demonstrate your interest in an organization or a university, and it's a sign of your long-term commitment goals. Not necessarily that, if you get this acceptance or this offer that you're 100% gonna commit, um, but it can show that you are more likely to and that you do have an interest and you value quality in a university or in a program. So some examples of questions you might want to ask would be, what qualities do you look for in a successful candidate? This question can be really great because you can kind of check yourself a little bit and review what answers did you give and what qualities do you have to make sure that, is this position or university really a match for me? That's really key in an interview. You don't always want to go in with like, I have to ace this interview, like I want to be able to, or I want to, work at this position or I want to go to this university, because you might find out more information that tells you that, maybe this isn't the right fit for you, which is fine. And that is just part of the process. But making sure that you know upfront is going to really benefit you. And then something focused on the team environment. Can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with? Or for a university, you could say something like, how would you describe the campus community or campus culture? Um, and then what are the next steps in the interview process? That's a good just like final question just to make sure that you're not missing any documents that you need to submit. And it does, again, show a very clear demonstrated interest. Try to avoid generic questions. Don't try to ask questions that can be easily answered by reading the website. Um, which can be a little bit tricky because you might get a different answer from a website than from someone who had gone to that school. But that's why it's really important to always do your research in advance, and ask very specific and insightful questions. So to practice for an interview, along with preparation, mock interview practice can give you really good um, preparation for an interview in a low pressure environment. So mock interviews are important because they can help you become familiar with the format and timing and pressure of a real interview. But again, very low stakes. It's not a real interview. Um, so you want to try to simulate real conditions as much as possible. So try to set it up with maybe a friend or a mentor. I would recommend a mentor or a teacher because with a friend, sometimes it can be a little bit less serious and a little bit silly. But a mentor or maybe a parent or someone that you feel like you do need to present yourself in a more professional way would benefit you as long as you can get it to be as close to the real interview as possible. That is the best. Um, mock interviews are great because you are able to get feedback. So how were your answers, your body language, overall presentation? These are things that you can have someone check for you and make sure to fix or to kind of do or don't do. And it can be a really great way to just refine your performance and fine tune your responses and approach. You can even try to do like by yourself practicing your answers just in the mirror. Can even though that's not like it's gonna be different when you're in the interview. Speaking out loud is like the biggest recommendation I have. So as long as you can do it, if you want to do it to like your pet or your cat, or in the mirror, or of course mock interview practice, all of those are just gonna really get you in the habit of public speaking and answering interview questions. And then interview etiquette. Some of the key things you really want to make sure that you get before the interview. Punctuality is key. So always be early for an interview. You do not want to be late. That is like a very kind of sign of like disrespect for the interview's time. So try to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early for an interview. Dress professionally, so choose attire that's appropriate for the industry or university setting. Err on the side of being slightly more formal. Of course, it's going to be different now since a lot of these interviews are on Zoom or online. But from shoulders up, make sure that you don't have to be too formal for a college interview, but you want to be slightly more formal than usual. And then politeness. So be courteous, use polite language, thank the interviewer for their time, and it's always a great idea to send a follow-up thank you email after the interview. It shows your appreciation and it can also show a little bit of interest. It helps if the interviewer is, you know, interviewing a lot of people. You can just put like a little bit like I just want to like reinforce that I think that I'm a great fit for this position or this university because of XYZ. Can really re-jog their memory of the interview and might have an impact on the outcome of your application. Um, all right, so on the next slide, we'll wrap up with post-interview reflection. So after an interview, you want to evaluate your answers. So you want to reflect on if you answered the questions fully, Did you use the STAR method to structure your responses? Was that helpful? Was that confusing? Do you think you highlighted your strengths effectively? And then this is important because it will help you identify improvement areas. So recognize the areas where you could improve. Did you come across too nervous? Do you feel like you could have been more specific in your examples? And then seeking feedback. A lot of people don't always do this, but this can be a really great idea, especially if you're just starting out and you're not super experienced with doing interviews. It's always fine to ask for feedback from the interviewer. This could even go along in that thank you letter you write. Um, I would try to wait to see if you get um, a response from them. For example, even if you don't get accepted or you don't get a job offer, um, it can still be helpful to receive feedback because then you know that maybe you weren't as strong in your interview as you could have been. I have done this. If I haven't received like an acceptance to something, I would say, would you mind just like giving me some quick feedback on how you think I could have improved on my application or my interview? And that really, really helps you for next time. Um, and yeah, I always think that's a good idea. Also, with rejection, even after the interview, if you feel like, you did really horribly or you had no chance, the interviewer might actually think that you did well. We tend to be ourselves hardest critics. So ultimately, if you do get rejected, that just means it wasn't a match for you and you will find something better. So you don't have to be too hard on yourself. So building confidence for interviews and presentation. Confidence can really make or break an interview. Not only it's okay to be nervous. I know Isabella talked about that, but you want to portray that you are confident and that you are kind of cool, calm, and collected. Um, and how confident you are is going to directly depend on how prepared you are. So prepare mentally. Isabella talked about, visualizing yourself succeeding and delivering your speech or your answer. Practice positive affirmations to make sure that you feel secure in what you're talking about. Physical techniques. Um, I don't know if anyone has tried a power pose. I've never tried it, but science shows that if you do a power pose a few minutes before an interview or a presentation, it can actually boost your confidence. So, can't hurt to try. And then during the interview, especially if you're too nervous, just remind yourself, talk slowly and breathe. Make sure you have water nearby. When we get nervous, um, our heart starts to beat faster and maybe our throat and mouth can get dry, and that can just overall kind of hinder our performance. So make sure you have water, avoid fidgeting and moving too much during the interview as well. And then again, key is focusing on your strengths. Remind yourself of your past successes and how your skills align with the role and program. If you are offered an interview, that means that they think that you are a potentially good candidate for this role or this university. So use that, lean into that, because the interviewer is going in with that mindset, and you should also go in with that mindset. Um, so yeah, I think that's it for this slide. And then just some life hacks and some quick tips for effective communication. Listen actively. Also, these are things that you can practice in your everyday sort of life. As you go into college, you will be in a lot more situations that require you to speak publicly and to, have more interviews. So it's good to start now and just even just when you're in class, pay full attention to the speaker, ask clarifying questions, reflect on what they're saying, and then active listening will help build rapport and trust, which can really help with, bonds with your teacher or professor, and could maybe even open the door to opportunities where you will use your interview skills. And then being clear and concise. Whether you're speaking or writing, you want to aim for clarity. You want to make your answers easy to be heard. avoid unnecessary jargon, focus on getting your point across effectively, and adapt your communication style. Really important to be flexible in how you communicate because it's the way that you convey certain points is going to be different depending on the context. So if it's a more formal event, you're going to be, going that extra mile to make sure that you are confident, that you're standing up straight, that you're using more formal language. And then in informal situations, making sure that you're adjusting to that context as well. All right, so finally, we'll discuss briefly the key takeaways and the next steps. Overall, just a quick recap of public speaking tips we talked about. Practice regularly, focus on body language, and structure your message. And then to overcome nervousness, use deep breathing and visualization, or find a technique that works the best for you. Different things are going to work different for different people. So making sure that you have something that you know will calm you down and prepare you for success. For interview tips, make sure that you are thoroughly prepared for common questions, that you know how to use the STAR method if needed to structure your answers. Make sure you're doing research on the position and the university, and then practice mock interviews and seek feedback from other people. Some action steps is start public speaking by participating in group discussions, joining a speech club, find ways that you already know that you have opportunities to speak publicly and try to use those to your advantage to, give you some practice and make you stronger at public speaking. And then again, schedule mock interviews with friends, or look into what kind of career services and what resources you have maybe at your school or locally to help you prepare for interviews or other sort of things related to public speaking. Staying confident in your practice. Success will come with continuous practice and self-reflection. So that's always key to keep in mind when you are starting to improve your public speaking skills. Yeah, and again, just highlighting the importance of public speaking because everyone here will be in a situation where you will have to speak publicly. A lot of people, there was one survey done, I'm not quite sure what it was, but it said that public speaking is one of the things that workers feel like they're the worst at, or they feel the most nervous at doing. So once you do it, you kind of realize you don't have to be afraid. I know it's different, especially in English. If English is not your second language, that's a whole set of different challenges. But these tips can really help you feel like it's something that you can do and it's something that you can do well. So I think that's it for our presentation. If Isabella has anything else to add, we could do the Kahoot, or if anyone has questions.
Thank you very much, Anya, Isabella. It was great to listen to your tips. I'm sure that our students will use them in practice. We have a few questions in our chart. You may start answering them, but before that, I just want to draw attention of our students who participate in this event about Education USA programs that available to all of you. I think students will prepare more questions to all of you, but let me announce two programs. One of them is Competitive College Club. This is the program designed especially for secondary school students who would like to apply for a bachelor's degree in the United States. Another program is Graduate Students Advising Program, GSAP. It's like CCC, but for adults, for students who would like to study master's or PhD degrees. Both cohort advising programs are free of charge and 100% online. So if you are interested in these programs, please write an email. I will write it now. Belarus at Education USA, educationusa.org. And I will send you the link to fill out because there is a competition. But usually we accept those students who really would like to study in the US and would like and can dedicate additional time for preparations. So coming back to the questions, Anya, Isabella, you have several one in the chat. Can you please proceed?
Maybe I'll start taking Sophia's question. So some advice on how to keep the audience's attention during the presentation, the performance, whatever. I find that if the audience can tell that you're not interested in what you're presenting on, then they're not going to be interested in what you're presenting on. And so some of the best ways that I've found for keeping the audience attention on me is kind of conveying how interested I am in the subject that I'm presenting on, especially if it might seem, I don't know, if the subject matter might be more specific, or like if it's like a class presentation on a required topic, really just conveying your own engagement and excitement, and that bringing that kind of attitude does help. But also definitely like some of the tips we talked about, like minimal text on slides, pictures, graphs, any kind of visualization, and then also using these visualizations, pointing to them, gesturing. I don't know, like I've had several presentations in my classes that have been on the more historical sites. Like I've brought out maps before, pointed to the maps where things happened, where things were. I even had a professor who refused to let us put more than a sentence of words on a slide. And he said that the more pictures you have in your presentation and the less words, the better your grade. Um, to the point where like his presentations would have an image and then maybe two or three words next to it, and then he would just talk for 15 minutes about that slide. That's pretty intense. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but the more pictures and the more visuals you have and the more engaged you seem, I think the more the audience kind of picks up on that. So I don't know. Anya, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think having it's not necessarily like even if you are not super passionate about a topic, I think there's always something that you can sound passionate about or that you can um something specifically that you find super interesting that you feel like you want to highlight because other people will find it interesting. I would also add that if you can find ways to make it relevant to your audience, that can really help make it interesting. For my degree, I had to take a public speaking class where every week we would have to give a speech, which was very intimidating at first. But we would get assigned like a question or a topic, and then we would pick something to give a speech about. And it would range from like political issues to like, gosh, I don't even know, like a commencement speech. So I think making it relevant to your audience is really going to help with interest. Also, I recommend looking online at either like professor lectures or TED Talks, depending on what kind of presentation you're doing. But regardless of the topic, looking at different ways that other professionals are presenting things and kind of how they speak, how they convey information could be helpful for setting up your presentation. Okay, the next question is, where can I find recording a previous presentation on tips of the application process? I believe this might be a question for Victor, just because I'm not sure, but I
Yes,
believe
we have this session recorded, so we're going to share this recording soon. Thank you for reminding.
And then, is an application interview different from a job interview? Yeah, those are going to be different interviews. I've never had like I personally have never had to do an interview for a university. I've done a lot of job interviews though. And honestly, a lot of even job interviews can be very different. Some can be very short, very to the point. kind of just like, what are your strengths and why do you want to work here? What do you know about our organization? And then other interviews can be a lot more specific and they ask you a lot more diverse questions. I mean, it's going to be different because you'll be researching the school and you'll be highlighting your school and academic achievements more than you would be in a job interview. There are, of course, some things that would overlap, but for school interviews, if you prepare for a job interview, you're probably going to be able to answer most of the questions in an application interview. So like things like STAR method, you can use those for both interviews. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know if Isabella has something to add for that from her experience.
I have done a school interview before, and it tends to focus much more on academic achievement rather than like actual like working skills that you have. Um, and in my personal experience, they asked very specifically about what I wanted, like why I was interested in this program. And because I study international relations, my interviewer actually asked me, "Oh, so what's some recent world news that has you interested?" And so there was this kind of like expectation that, like, as someone who wants to do an international relations degree, I would be following up with world news, that kind of thing. And so I brought something up and we chatted about it. We had a really interesting conversation about vaccine diplomacy. But that is not really something that would be present in a job interview most of the time. There, they would be assessing your skills, whether or not you are a good fit for the role that they have for you. So that was a major difference that I feel is relevant.
I would also add that for a job interview, it's less about what you can gain. Like you'll be asked more questions about what you can contribute to that position and like about your experience and like not so much what you want to gain, but for a university interview, they're going to be more interested on what do you want to get out of that experience and also what you want to contribute. But with a job, I mean, also it's like for a job interview, like that position, you're getting paid, but for college, you're paying for that experience. So they're going to be more focused on your your future and academic professional goals and what you want out of that educational experience, rather than in a job interview, which is going to be more like, what can you do for us?
Yeah, and I would like to add that very simple explanation. Give them what they want. Demonstrate perfect match of the requirements for position to what you can demonstrate, to what you can show. Okay, do you have any more questions? I have some questions related to CCC, but I already answered that if you have Belarus passport from Belarus, it's okay, even if you are outside Belarus and resident in another country. So please write an email and I will send you direct link to CCC application form. The same to GSAP. So I don't see any more questions. We have 22 participants left. Oh, 2 new messages. Okay, thank you. When the CCC start? At the beginning of April. The deadline for application process is March 21. Don't think it's too much time. It's not too much time, so please apply as soon as possible. Somebody is asking, can you describe the STAR method? Again, describe the STAR method. I don't think we have enough time to do that because it's now we're almost 1 hour online.
If it's helpful, I can just quickly
Yeah.
copy and paste it in the
Yeah.
chat, just in
Yeah,
case people have it.
because some people were late. In some words. Situation, task, action, result. Okay, guys, would you like to pass through the quiz and one of you will win free VTest code? Would you like to participate in this quiz? It will take around 10 minutes. Anya, how long?
Yeah. Maybe a little bit less because we have 10 questions this time.
Please answer yes, those who would like to participate. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Who else will join? Because if only 4 people will participate in quiz, it's unfair to share this code. Not too much people. We expect around at least 10. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. If Kahoot opens from Belarus today. Natalia, I think. Okay, so let's try. Anya.
Okay.
So again, the winner, only one among you will receive free VTest code. This quiz is in English, so you need to understand the question and react quickly. Anya will share the link with you and code. The pin is 740107. Please enter www.kahoot.it and enter your pin. And enter this pin. Yes. Enter this pin. At this stage, we have 2 students. 3. Now I will stop the recording at this stage. We had some technical problems, so thanks, Alicia, for your help.